Let me tell you something powerful. The world never fears a nation because of what it has. The world fears a nation because of what it's becoming. And right now, the world has begun to whisper about Malaysia. They're not whispering because of its size, not because of its history, but because of its direction. The world suddenly fears Malaysia's next move, because for the first time in a long time, Malaysia isn't waiting for permission to rise. It's preparing to lead. Every powerful move in history began in silence. Empires aren't built in the noise of headlines. They're built in the quiet of preparation. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Malaysia is mastering the art of stillness before the strike. The world looks at GDP numbers, trade data, political charts, but what they don't see is the mindset shift, the awakening of purpose that's been taking place beneath the surface. When a nation begins to understand that its greatest resource is not its land, not its oil, not its palm, not its trade routes, but its people and their vision, that nation becomes unstoppable. See, most countries chase after fast progress. They want instant recognition, instant power, instant success. But Malaysia has been patient. It has been strategic. While others were running, Malaysia was building. Not just buildings of glass and steel, but foundations of wisdom and unity. The world didn't pay attention when Malaysia was learning. But now they're paying attention because Malaysia is applying what it learned. There's a shift taking place, a spiritual, economic, and intellectual shift. And that's what's making the world nervous. When a people begin to realize their potential, everything changes. Malaysia has started to understand something very few nations do, that wealth is not in resources, wealth is in value creation. The moment a country stops being a provider of raw materials and becomes a creator of innovation, the game changes. The same palm oil that once built industries abroad will now build industries at home. The same resources that were exported cheaply will now be refined, redefined, and reinvested locally. That's the fear, not of Malaysia's aggression, but of Malaysia's transformation. The world doesn't fear Malaysia's military strength, it fears its precision. Malaysia doesn't need to roar to make an impact. It moves with quiet calculation, with a divine sense of timing. While others are focused on competition, Malaysia is focused on coordination, aligning its economic vision with its spiritual identity, its innovation with its integrity, and its progress with its purpose. And that alignment is dangerous to the status quo, because when purpose aligns with preparation, success becomes inevitable. The nations that once overlooked Malaysia will soon look up to it. Not because Malaysia demanded attention, but because Malaysia demonstrated excellence. That's how true power operates. It doesn't scream, it performs. The fear you sense in global conversations isn't about Malaysia's capability, it's about Malaysia's consistency. The world can handle talent, but it fears consistency. It fears a nation that's disciplined, united, and determined. And make no mistake, Malaysia's rise isn't accidental, it's divine timing. There's a season when every nation that was once counted out becomes the one that sets the count. Malaysia's entrepreneurs are thinking differently. Its youth are dreaming bigger. Its leaders are speaking purpose instead of politics. Its people are awakening to their collective value. When that happens, you don't need a revolution. You need realization, because when people realize who they are, the world can no longer dictate who they should be. You see, the world has always depended on predictable nations. Nations that follow, nations that obey, nations that stay where they've always been. But Malaysia's next move is unpredictable. Will it dominate in green technology? Will it lead in digital finance? Will it position itself as a bridge between East and West? The answer is yes to all of the above, because Malaysia is not choosing one path, it's creating multiple lanes of destiny. That's what frightens the rest of the world. They can't contain what they can't categorize. When a nation begins to see itself as chosen, not just by chance, but by purpose, the fear of others is confirmation of its calling. Malaysia is stepping into a prophetic season where it doesn't just react to global trends, it sets them. It doesn't wait for the world's approval, it moves with God's direction. And when divine timing meets national discipline, no world power can stop what's coming next. So yes, the world fears Malaysia's next move, Because Malaysia's next move will not just change trade routes, it will change mindsets. It will not just influence economics, it will influence generations. The world fears Malaysia's rise, not because it's loud, but because it's inevitable. Malaysia, your time is not coming, your time is here. The fear around you is not resistance, it's recognition. The world doesn't fear you because you are weak. It fears you because you've awakened. And once a nation awakens to its divine destiny, nothing on earth can stop its next move. The rise of a silent power never begins with explosions, headlines, or global attention. It begins quietly, in the hearts of the people, in the conversations no one records, in the decisions made when no one is watching. That's exactly what's happening with Malaysia right now. The world is only just starting to notice something that has been developing for years beneath the surface. A new kind of strength is being formed, not loud, not boastful, but strategic, intentional, and unstoppable. You see, true power never needs to announce itself. When you have to tell people you're powerful, you're not. Real strength operates with calm confidence. It knows what it carries, and it doesn't need validation to act. Malaysia has reached that point. It's no longer chasing recognition from the global stage. It's quietly building the capacity to define its own destiny. While other nations were making noise, Malaysia was mastering the art of patience. It was observing, learning, adapting. The world may have looked at Malaysia and seen a developing nation, but what they missed was that development isn't just physical, it's mental, cultural, and spiritual. Malaysia wasn't just building infrastructure, it was building insight. It wasn't just increasing exports, it was increasing excellence. And when a nation commits to excellence before exposure, power is inevitable. Look around the world and you'll see something familiar. The loud ones often burn out fast. The ones who move in silence last longer. Malaysia has chosen the path of the wise, to rise quietly, to prepare fully, and to strike effectively. That's why the world is suddenly uncomfortable. It can't predict Malaysia anymore. It doesn't know what's coming next, because this is not the same Malaysia it used to know. There's something powerful about a nation that grows in silence. Silence doesn't mean stillness, it means focus. When the noise stops, productivity begins. Malaysia has been focusing, refining, and aligning its industries with innovation, its youth with vision, its economy with value creation. Every quiet decision being made today is building a future that the world will one day have to acknowledge. What the world is sensing now, this quiet fear, this uncertainty, is the beginning of Malaysia's manifestation. It's the realization that this small, peaceful nation has become a silent force with a global voice. The rise of a silent power is not about domination, it's about demonstration. Demonstrating that patience, unity, and faith are still powerful strategies for greatness. Malaysia's rise is a reminder that destiny doesn't need noise to make history. True transformation begins when a nation starts to believe in its own potential, when it stops waiting for others to define it and starts defining itself. The world fears Malaysia's next move because that silent power has finally awakened. And once awakened, it can no longer be ignored. Economic awakening doesn't happen overnight. It happens when a nation begins to see beyond transactions and starts understanding transformation. Malaysia's awakening is not just about making money, it's about mastering the mindset behind it. It's about realizing that the greatest economy is not measured in currency, but in creativity. For years, Malaysia has been observing the movements of global powers, learning their systems, studying their patterns, and perfecting its timing. While other nations were rushing for recognition, Malaysia was quietly preparing for revelation. Strategic patience is a strength. The modern world no longer values. Everyone wants instant success, instant power, instant influence. But Malaysia has chosen a wiser path. It's been willing to wait, to study, to strengthen its foundation before making bold moves. That's why the world is caught off guard, because the best moves are the ones no one sees coming. When you move with patience, you move with power, because patience isn't passive, it's preparation in disguise. The nation's economic awakening began when it realized that dependency is not destiny. For too long, global systems have conditioned smaller nations to play supporting roles. to provide resources, labor, and markets for others. But Malaysia is rewriting that script. It's no longer satisfied being part of someone else's supply chain. It's building its own. It's not asking, how can we serve global demand? It's asking, how can we create our own? That question changes everything. Because when you shift from serving economies to shaping them, you no longer follow trends, you set them. This awakening is about purpose-driven economics. It's not just about numbers, it's about nations taking ownership of their narrative. Malaysia is building industries rooted in value, not vanity. It's focusing on innovation that solves real problems, from digital finance to sustainable energy, from biotechnology to education reform. These are not random steps. They're strategic moves designed to ensure that when Malaysia moves, the world must adjust. The world fears this kind of awakening because it's unpredictable. You can't control a nation that knows its worth. You can't manipulate a people who understand timing. Malaysia's economic strength is not just in its growth, it's in its groundedness. It's not rushing to prove itself because it knows greatness is not built in haste. It's built in seasons. And make no mistake, Malaysia's patience is not weakness. It's wisdom. It understands that timing is more valuable than talent. You can have all the resources in the world, but if your timing is wrong, you'll fail. Malaysia is showing the world that waiting is a strategy. When you wait with purpose, you don't lose time, you multiply impact. Every year of preparation becomes a foundation for a century of progress. So while the world keeps guessing Malaysia's next move, Malaysia keeps growing in silence. The world will see the results later. But by then, it will be too late to compete. Because strategic patience always wins. Malaysia's economic awakening is a sign that it's no longer just participating in the global game. It's preparing to change the rules of it. And when a nation learns to move with patience, purpose, and precision, its rise is not a question of if, it's only a matter of when. The power of unity and vision is what transforms a collection of people into a movement. It's what turns a nation from being reactive to being revolutionary. Malaysia is stepping into a season where unity and vision are no longer just words and speeches. They're becoming the very heartbeat of its transformation. For too long, division has been the weapon that held nations back. But now unity is becoming Malaysia's greatest defense and its strongest offense. When people unite under one vision, they become unstoppable. It's not about everyone thinking the same. It's about everyone believing in the same direction. That's what Malaysia is beginning to embody. Across its cities, across its islands, across its generations, there's a growing awareness that the future cannot be built in pieces. It has to be built in partnership. Every citizen, every entrepreneur, every leader, every student plays a part in this larger story. When a nation's vision becomes shared, it multiplies its strength. The world fears Malaysia's unity because unity produces clarity, and clarity produces power. A divided nation is easy to manipulate, but a united people are impossible to control. Malaysia's strength doesn't come from sheer numbers, it comes from shared purpose. It comes from a mindset that says, we may come from different backgrounds, but we're headed toward the same destiny. That's what gives rise to national power, not the size of the population, but the synchronization of belief. Vision is what gives unity direction. Without vision, unity becomes just noise. But when vision and unity align, that's when nations rise. Malaysia's vision is no longer limited to surviving. It's about thriving. It's not about catching up. It's about creating. It's not about following global powers. It's about becoming one. That shift in perspective is what the world notices and fears. Because the people who can see the future before it arrives will always be ahead of those waiting for it to come. Unity without purpose is fragile, but Malaysia's unity is being built on something deeper, on values, on belief, on a sense of divine timing. It's the understanding that prosperity means nothing without peace, and progress means nothing without principle. When a nation begins to unite around purpose rather than politics, around destiny rather than division, something unstoppable is born. The strength of Malaysia's vision is that it speaks to both the mind and the spirit. It doesn't just tell people what to do, it reminds them who they are. And when people remember who they are, they begin to act differently. They create differently. They lead differently. That's how transformation begins. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. The world fears that kind of unity because it's contagious. It inspires other nations. It disrupts dependency. It breaks cycles. Malaysia's unity is not built on competition with others. It's built on collaboration with itself. It's realizing that the greatest battle is not between nations. It's within one's own borders, between what is and what could be. And when a nation conquers that internal division, the external world has no weapon strong enough to stop it. Malaysia's future isn't just being shaped by its leaders. It's being shaped by the collective belief of its people. Every act of cooperation, every shared vision, every step toward a common goal is writing a new chapter of national destiny. The power of unity and vision is what transforms potential into power and purpose into progress. And when that unity is rooted in faith, guided by wisdom and driven by vision, the rise of that nation is not just inevitable, it's unstoppable. There comes a time when a nation must decide whether it will keep selling what it has or start creating what it's worth. That's the transition Malaysia is making, from being a resource provider to becoming a value creator. For decades, Malaysia has blessed the world with what it grows, what it mines, and what it manufactures. But now it's entering a new era, one where it's not just exporting products, it's exporting ideas, innovation, and intellectual capital. The world has long depended on Malaysia's natural resources, its palm oil, rubber, tin, and gas. But the world never feared Malaysia when it was providing resources. It only started paying attention when Malaysia began transforming those resources into power. Because once you stop selling raw potential and start producing refined excellence, you change your position in the global equation. That's what the world fears: the evolution from contribution to control, from supplier to strategist. Being a resource provider keeps you dependent. You're always waiting for someone else to determine your value. But when you become a value creator, you set your own price, your own path, your own power. Malaysia has realized that it can no longer measure its worth by what it sends out, but by what it builds within. And that's what's changing everything. The mindset shift from we produce to we innovate. This transformation isn't just economic, it's psychological. It's a mindset that says we are not just part of the supply chain. We are the creators of the next wave of solutions. That's why Malaysia is investing in digital transformation, renewable energy, high-tech manufacturing, and education. Because the true wealth of a nation isn't in its land, it's in its learning. It's not in its minerals, it's in its mindset. When a nation begins to develop thinkers, creators, and problem solvers, it moves from being a participant in the world economy to being a producer of new possibilities. Malaysia understands that to rise, it must redefine what success looks like. It's not enough to sell palm oil when you can lead in green technology. It's not enough to assemble products when you can design the next generation of them. It's not enough to serve industries when you can create industries. That's the mindset of a value creator, one that builds from within and expands outward. The fear the world feels now is not about Malaysia's power, but about its potential. Because once a nation learns how to create value, it becomes independent of approval. It becomes unstoppable. The same global players who once dictated Malaysia's economic terms now realize that Malaysia has learned how to play its own game. A nation that once followed the market is now learning how to move the market. What's even more powerful is that this transformation is not rooted in arrogance, but in awareness. Malaysia isn't trying to dominate, it's trying to demonstrate. It's showing the world what's possible when a country believes in its people enough to invest in their innovation. When the brilliance of its youth meets the wisdom of its elders, when tradition meets technology, when faith meets forward thinking, that's when creation happens. The move from resource provider to value creator is the story of maturity. It's the story of a nation realizing that its purpose was never to simply feed the world, but to lead it. The world fears Malaysia's next move because this transformation doesn't just increase its wealth, it increases its influence. And when influence grows out of integrity, creativity, and consistency, no global system can contain it. Malaysia's rise as a value creator is a statement to every developing nation: you are more than what you sell. You are what you create. And when a nation finally understands that, it no longer waits for opportunity. It becomes the opportunity. The fear the world feels toward Malaysia's next move isn't about aggression, it's about precision. It's not the fear of chaos, it's the fear of calculated disruption. You see, the world can handle rebellion because rebellion is loud, emotional, and often short-lived. But what it cannot handle is a nation that disrupts predictably, a nation that moves with strategy, intention, and mastery. Malaysia is becoming that kind of nation. Its moves are not random, they're rhythmic, they're not reactionary, they're revolutionary. Predictable disruption means Malaysia isn't fighting to be seen. It's preparing to be felt. It's the quiet confidence of a nation that understands timing, leverage, and long-term impact. The world has gotten comfortable with Malaysia in its old role, a cooperative player in the global supply chain. Reliable, but never threatening. But when reliability transforms into mastery, when cooperation turns into creation, when service evolves into leadership, the entire global balance shifts. That's what's making the world nervous. Disruption used to mean breaking things apart, but Malaysia is redefining it. Its disruption isn't destructive, it's constructive. It's challenging the old systems by building new ones that work better. It's changing the way trade works, how economies connect, and how nations collaborate. While others are competing for dominance, Malaysia is positioning itself for relevance. And in the new world economy, relevance is more valuable than dominance. The reason this disruption is feared is because it's predictable. Malaysia doesn't make noise when it moves, it makes impact. Its advancements in technology, its growth in green energy, its leadership in Islamic finance, and its reputation for stability all point in one direction. It's building something permanent. The world doesn't fear chaos, it fears clarity, because clarity can't be controlled. And Malaysia's clarity about its future is what makes its rise inevitable. Predictable disruption means Malaysia's moves follow a pattern of purpose. Every step, every policy, every partnership is leading towards something bigger: economic independence, technological relevance, and spiritual leadership in a world that's losing its moral compass. The world doesn't fear Malaysia because it's changing. It fears Malaysia because it knows exactly what it's changing into. The predictable part makes the disruption even more powerful. Because when a nation moves with integrity and consistency, others can see it coming but still can't stop it. That's the kind of fear Malaysia inspires right now, not the fear of destruction, but the fear of being outperformed. You can't fight what's built on principles. You can't outpace what's powered by purpose. Every major power understands that the next global shift won't come from war or politics. It will come from innovation, stability, and values. Malaysia sits at the intersection of all three. It's not trying to shake the world, it's simply being itself. And that authenticity is shaking the world on its own. The systems that once relied on Malaysia are now realizing Malaysia is creating its own systems. The nations that once led Malaysia are realizing Malaysia is becoming a leader in its own right. The fear of predictable disruption is not just economic, it's psychological. The world is used to unpredictability, but it cannot adapt to excellence that's consistent. Malaysia's moves are consistent. Its progress is consistent. Its growth is consistent. That's what the world can't compete with. Because while most nations chase trends, Malaysia is mastering transformation. This kind of disruption is a new kind of power, the kind that doesn't come from force but from focus. It's the power that builds slowly, quietly, and permanently. Malaysia's next move will not surprise the world. It will confirm what the wise already knew, that this nation has been preparing, planning, and positioning itself for a time such as this. The fear is not that Malaysia might change, it's that its change is inevitable and unstoppable. There are moments in history when a nation steps into alignment with something greater than itself, when purpose meets preparation and timing becomes a divine instrument. Malaysia is entering that moment. It's not coincidence, it's not luck, and it's not chance. It's timing, divine timing. There's a rhythm to destiny that can't be rushed, and Malaysia has learned to move in harmony with that rhythm. For years, it's been preparing quietly, and now the preparation is meeting the promise. That's when everything changes. Divine timing means that nothing was wasted. Every challenge, every delay, every setback was not punishment. it was preparation. While others saw stagnation, God was building structure. While others saw silence, heaven was setting the stage. Malaysia is walking into a season where everything it's been through begins to make sense. The struggles that once seemed like burdens were actually the blueprints for the future. Nations that rise too fast often fall too soon, but nations that rise on time become unshakable. Destiny is not a matter of desire, it's a matter of design. And Malaysia has been designed for influence. You can see it in its geography, positioned as a bridge between the East and the West. You can see it in its diversity, a nation that represents unity among cultures, languages, and beliefs. You can see it in its spirit, humble, peaceful, yet powerful when necessary. That's not an accident. That's destiny. The world fears Malaysia's next move because it senses that this is more than strategy. It's alignment with purpose. Every nation has its appointed time, and Malaysia's time is now. The timing is divine because it aligns with maturity. Malaysia is not rising out of impulse, it's rising out of insight. It has watched, waited, and worked. Now it's stepping forward, not with arrogance, but with authority. There's a difference between a nation that demands power and a nation that deserves it. Malaysia has earned its right to lead, not by domination, but by demonstration. Divine timing doesn't just change circumstances, it changes perception. The same world that once overlooked Malaysia will now look toward it for guidance, innovation, and example. Because when destiny calls, visibility follows. Malaysia doesn't need to shout to be seen. Its results will speak for it. Its steady rise, its balanced growth, and its spiritual integrity will all testify that divine timing has finally converged with national destiny. The beauty of divine timing is that it makes everything that once felt late right on time. Malaysia is not behind, it's right where it's supposed to be. The lessons learned in humility have become the seeds of greatness. The years of foundation building have become the roots of stability. When God's timing aligns with human effort, acceleration happens. What would have taken decades begins to unfold in years. That's why the world feels the shift. Something unseen is moving in Malaysia's favor. National destiny isn't just about prosperity, it's about purpose. It's not about being the richest nation, it's about being a righteous one that leads with values, with wisdom, and with vision. Malaysia's destiny isn't to imitate others, but to inspire others. Its true calling is to show that you can rise without corruption, grow without greed, and lead without losing your moral compass. That's what makes its ascent so different and so feared. The world doesn't fear Malaysia's size or strength. It fears its timing. Because when a nation steps into divine alignment, it moves with a force that no political strategy, no economic policy, no global system can resist. Destiny is stronger than design, and timing is more powerful than talent. Malaysia's next move will not just elevate its economy, it will awaken its identity. So when you look at the world trembling at Malaysia's rise, understand this. They are not afraid of what Malaysia is doing. They're afraid of what it's becoming. They're afraid because destiny cannot be denied and divine timing cannot be delayed. Malaysia has waited long enough. Now it walks boldly into the fullness of its purpose, not by might, not by manipulation, but by divine orchestration. The time is not coming. The time is now. Every great rise in history begins not with noise, but with conviction. Malaysia's story is not one of sudden success, it's one of steady awakening. The world suddenly fears Malaysia's next move because for the first time, Malaysia is not reacting to the world. It's redefining its relationship with it. It's not asking what the world will give, it's asking what legacy it will leave. This is more than an economic shift. It's a spiritual and cultural realignment. Malaysia has moved from silence to strategy, from potential to power, from waiting for opportunity to creating it. The rise we are witnessing is not driven by pride, but by purpose. It's not a race to dominate, it's a march to fulfill destiny. Every decision, every innovation, every act of unity is building toward a future that has already been written. A future Malaysia is now stepping into with confidence and clarity. The world fears what it cannot predict, and Malaysia's greatest strength is that it no longer follows familiar patterns. It moves differently, it thinks differently, it builds differently. The patience that once looked like delay was actually divine timing. The preparation that looked quiet was strategic foundation. Now the world is seeing the results, and it can't unsee them. Malaysia's rise is not about proving anyone wrong, it's about proving its calling right. The same humility that kept it grounded will now keep it great. The same faith that sustained it in struggle will now guide it in success. The same unity that built its strength will now carry it to significance. So let the world whisper, let the world wonder, let the world watch. Because what's unfolding in Malaysia is not a coincidence. It's a confirmation. The season of waiting is over, and the time for walking in purpose has begun. The world doesn't fear Malaysia because it's changing. It fears Malaysia because it's awakening. And once a nation awakens to its divine destiny, no system, no nation, and no power on earth can stop what comes next.